over Baz. I'm Ronnie Adams.
And I'm Jacob Casas, and this episode is called Ivy League. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Jimmy Martin. I'm the father of my son, Mariano Martin. That's an Ivy League student and is going on your sophomore year at Columbia University in Manhattan, New York.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm Mariano. My dad just about introduced me, so yeah.
So tell us a little bit about tell us about the school you go to,
right? And
your GPA, and kind of go over a little bit of that.
Yeah, no, for sure. So as my dad mentioned, I go to Columbia University. It's an Ivy League school in Manhattan, New York. The school, it's a research institute. So I'm majoring in biochemistry on the pre-med track. And yeah, no, to get there in high school, I had like a 4.71 weighted GPA, 4.0 unweighted. I was second in my class out of 515 students. I was engaged in a lot of clubs, so I was the founder of the Black Student Union, the STEM Club. I did a program as well during this called Thrive Scholars, which also helped with my journey to college. And I did some community service through a pre-health club, so I got to go shadow a pathologist like my sophomore year of high school. And yeah, I just worked really hard, and just by the glory of God too, I was able to get a lot of accepted into 4 Ivy League schools, 12 schools that I applied to, I got in, and yeah, that's about it.
Well, sounds
a great rundown.
Yeah, that was really good. So tell us a little bit about your dad and what influence he had on you through this process.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, I would say for sure my dad is, like, my biggest influence ever since I was, like, a little kid. You know, my dad always, like, he always saw that I had high potential, and whatever I did, he wanted to make sure that I reached it. He would always do this thing, right? When I was a young kid, I still remember this. He was like, listen, like, your ceiling is up here. I was like, okay, like, what does that really mean? But he was talking about my potential, you know? And just growing up, like, I feel like a lot of traits that have made me into the man that I am are because of my dad. I've seen him his hard work. Like, my dad, he used to work in labor, he used to be a carpenter, and man, he would work hard labor in the sun just for hours, and he would still come home, you know, have a 2-hour drive, you know what I mean, take me to practice. You know, I did a lot of sports growing up. Even after being super tired, you know, he would put that extra effort in for me, and, you know, I admire my dad. Because of him, I'm where I am.
That's a great support system right there.
So what did you see in your son? Like, when you were going through this, obviously a lot of dads see a lot of potential in their kids, right?
Yeah.
But what did you see in him in order? Because obviously he has a high GPA. He's going to an Ivy League school. So I mean, what did you as a father see in him?
You know, well, to be honest, when having my son, I see my son in my image, and I wanted him to be everything that I didn't become. And everything I didn't become was because of the structure that I had in my life, or the lack of structure and guidance and support.
Talk about it.
So when I saw my son growing up, I'm like, man, everything that I went through, and not having a father steadily in my life, in and out of my life. You know, I have a mother that loved me a lot, but had to overcome a lot of mental episodes, drug use. I come from a small family, so I don't have a support system, a big support system. So my support system would be with friends or maybe their family. And in doing so, growing up, you know, you can get led to the wrong track, the wrong area of being around the wrong people. Right. So luckily I had a twin brother, so we were able to keep each other in check. So we found our way out of the trials and tribulations of our life. So when I saw my son, I'm like, you know what, I just kind of replayed my life. It's like, when I was doing good at this time, okay, I was kind of doing that on my own, but where did it go wrong at? And I was able to replay my life growing up, and it's like, I'm going to be there for my son in the ways that my support system wasn't.
So it was important for you to make sure that you were protecting and guarding your son.
Yeah, it definitely was, man. I wanted to guard him from all the pitfalls in my life that I ran into. So seeing him, I knew that he caught on to things quick, and he just needed that structure. And I just didn't want him to learn from the pitfalls that I did. So I guarded him from the pitfalls that I had to go through, so he didn't have to. And by doing so, he was always receptive of what I told him. Like I say, as men, as fathers, we got to be in our kids' lives, and we definitely have to implement qualities, traits, moral responsibility, integrity, all of these qualities that if we don't install in them, the streets will install in them, or somebody will. So, I mean, it's a challenge for every man to not just be a friend, father in your life, but be a father first and then a friend. So pretty much in raising my son, man, I just seen him in my likeness, and I just replayed my life with him. It's like he's not going to go through these pitfalls. He's going to have the structure. He's going to be held accountable for everything that happens to him. There's not going to be excuses. Like my thing with him is always it's a solution. You know, there is no excuse. You didn't get an A, it's not because you couldn't. It's what didn't you do why you didn't get the A, why you didn't achieve high. So that was that was my parenting with him. It's like you're going to be the best at whatever you do. If you're not the best, you're trying to be the best, and then we're going to just shape your life as you get older. And he found his way, man. He found his niche, and I can't be more prouder.
You said something so critical about being his friend. So how did you separate, from being, because a lot of us fathers, they say that we try to be our children's friend too much. And, we give them the benefit of a doubt, and it turns into chaos sometimes. So how did that work in your life?
It's a fine line, Ronnie, to do that, because you want to love your son, you want your son to love you, and not saying that you don't love your son when you're his father first, but I wanted to get the best results out of my son. So it's like, I'm going to be your father first, and I loved him enough to where I didn't want him to make the mistakes I made. So it's like, I'm going to instill in you hard work and determination and show you that. And I would explain things in life we would see situations, and I would say, man, this looks this way. Kind of like the sheep thing, where things can be perceived and media can perceive something a certain way, so kids, they flock to it. So I would, when you see these kids looking up to these shoes, or everyone is all infatuated on how they look and this perception of I'm cool, but this is what it really looks like.
So
this is what really cool looks like.
Oh, yeah. From the beginning even to now.
Yeah, no, definitely. In my life, anything that my dad's told me, I've understood that he's coming from a place, where he loves me, you know what I mean? It's just, it's funny, too, because, as a kid, sometimes, you're like, man, he's just being my dad, he's just getting on me, whatever.
A lot of kids are like that.
Exactly. But especially as I got older, too, it's just, I really started to realize, everything that my dad was telling me, he wasn't just saying it just to get on me. There was merit behind it. There's a reason behind it. And so because of that, everything that my dad's told me, it made sense, too. So I knew, he knew best. What he was telling me.
It shows. Look at your GPA and the school you're going to. That doesn't just happen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So he obviously pushed you to be that. And that's a good dad right there. That's a strong dad, because that ain't easy for a dad to. I'm a father too, right? Mm-hmm. That's not easy for a dad to do, because he has his own life. He's trying to push and make money and to build life for you. But at the same time, he's trying to push you to be something great. And that's a hard thing to do. It's a lot of work, if anything. It's a lot of work,
Yeah, no, definitely.
So in Howls Over Baz, the thing that we talk about a lot is we have a list of things that we feel is necessary to be a howler, and number one on our list is being God-fearing. So for you two, what does that mean to you to be God-fearing, and do you believe that should be the center, the first thing in your life?
I'll let you start that off, Mariano.
Oh yeah, so. Man, all throughout my life, to be a God-fearing man has been everything. Anytime I've gone through hardship, I've gone through anything that was tough in my life, praying to God and having just that, those moments with Him, He's always been my source of comfort, by far. And, I tell everybody this, and I will, till the day I die, I will always, spread the word of the Lord, and just everything that I've seen from my lowest lows to my highest highs, God's always been there with me. So even in moments, getting into college, I feel like when things are going good for people, they start to kind of ease off of they start forgetting. They start to ease off their journey with faith. But I give God all the glory for my college acceptances, anything an internship, any success that I have, no matter how big, how small it is, it's God's glory.
And how does that affect you in college? Because I know that college is so against it a lot.
Yeah.
They teach the opposite, in college. So as a man of faith, how do you How do you go through that in a day-to-day aspect in college?
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say it's like the community that I found on campus. So as soon as I got to campus, we have this it's like a club. It's called RUF. It's like a residential like fellowship on campus.
Wow.
So I joined that, and like there, I made like friends who were like who were God fearing people as well, and even like my best friend and my roommate we would do like Bible studies like in his room at after studying chemistry until like 1 a.m.
You did good, Dad. You did real good, Dad.
No, but like seriously, like we would do Bible studies, and then we would just talk about like how it applies like in our life, you know, because like you said, like college, it's a very like secular environment, and I meet people like every day, you know, who have like very like non like faith-based ideas, and I just see it in like their sort of lifestyles, but remaining like grounded, and especially like the biggest thing I'd say is like humility. Like a lot of people who aren't humble, I also notice that they aren't like people of like they're not people of Christ, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like because of like that relationship with God, and like, you know, so going to church on the weekends, you know, like after my like after studying aside and like giving him the Lord like the time that he deserves, you know, everything else follows with that. Any other concerns or any other like things that are going on in my life, I realize when I put God first, all that stuff gets handled.
Wow.
For sure.
That's admirable right there. You know?
So you raised him in the in the walk.
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't grow up with going to church. You know, I was separated from my parents, where my grandparents taught me church, you know, for the little time that I was with them. But through all my trials and tribulations, I've known that God has always got me through it. But I didn't have that spiritual, just that spiritual strength, and that's a spiritual fortitude, you can say. I had to learn it through life. So there was days in my life where I would look away from God, but I always knew that he was there, but I didn't have that support system.
But you did your job in teaching him. So how did you do that? Like, what did you go? How did you go about that?
Teaching him
about God, like, because he's a man of faith.
Correct. Well, he's always known God is here, God is there, you know. But growing up, he didn't go to church from age 1 to where he is now. He started going to church mainly, I would say, 15 years old, Mariana.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that's impressive. Tell us about that. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, especially during, like, quarantine, like, my spiritual journey, like, it's a whole story in itself. So, during quarantine, I will say, like, at that point, like, in terms of, like, my own mental health, I was probably, like, the lowest. Like, I would stay in my room a lot, and, like, my parents even noticed it. They'd be like, you know, are you always in your room? And I just do my homework, but I don't know, especially just, like, that time in, like, isolation, like, I would just be left to, like, my own thoughts, you know what I mean? And so, like, it was just weird, like, even in my own life, like, I wasn't, like, strong in my faith quite yet, but, and what I'm about to say, I truly believe it was, like, the Holy Spirit. So, like, one day I'm just chilling, and it was, like, I had my Bible in, like, it was, like, on a shelf in our living room. And so one day, I don't know what it was, and I think the Holy Spirit is what I believe it was. It just drove me. I was like, I just want to put it on my desk, and I just want to read Genesis. I just started from the beginning, right? And so I just read that day, you know, and I started, like, thinking about, like, what I was reading and, like, the grand scheme of, you know, everything, the universe, you know what I mean? Like, how everything fits into place the way it does, you know? And then over the next few days, like, I just continued, like, reading, and then my parents even noticed it, too. They were noticing that I had my Bible on my desk, and they were kind of, like, they'd, you know, like, oh, you reading the Bible? And I was like, yeah. And then my dad one day, he was like, yeah, you know, my favorite book in the Bible was, like, Proverbs or Psalms. And I was like, okay. So then I checked that out, like, those two books. And just reading it, like just gaining, like, the wisdom, you know, that David talked about, it, you know what I mean? And just, like, just going through and, like, really, like, sitting down, like, I would, like, pray, like I'm not even kidding you. I'd be, like, crying, like on, like, my face, you know, just praying, man. And, like, just, like, when I started, like, actually, like, pursuing God, everything in my life got much better. Even academically, that was around the time when I got this random thing in the mail about this program that I'll go more into later. That happened. You know, my home life, my relationship with my parents, you know, like in their relationship, I was noticing that they were, like, you know, coming together even more.
Let me jump in, man. So me and my wife seeing my son on his own do this consistently. It's like I've always known God was there, but, you know, sometimes you can take God for granted, man. But seeing him do it really on his own, like he's known about God. We've placed it, there to him. And that's where I've learned a lot of my wisdom was from the Bible. And certain principles to practice, but seeing him do it on his own really brought my family, me and my wife, to church on a consistent basis. And now we go as a family.
He influenced you this round.
Yes, cool. you can always say you learn from everyone, right?
Always.
Definitely, seeing him do that on his own let us know that this is what we really need to be doing, not just sometimes or here and there.
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot too. I've been hearing things about this, like Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. Like your children are like the joy of your life. So the influence that you have on your children, they also have a major influence on the joy inside of you. Because they give you back a massive amount of joy that nobody else can give you. So when you see, like, my son reads the Bible. My son's 13. I went in the room and he's reading the Bible on his bed, and I was like blown away.
That's great.
I was like, "What are you doing, man?" He's like, I'm just reading. And I was blown away too. So that's kind of like funny that you were saying that.
Oh, yeah,
and that brings a lot to you. You're like, whoa, I need to be better. Like, you want to be better because you see that innocence in your kid. So I love that. I love that story.
I want to piggyback on that as well. Not just there, seeing him strive and me telling him how to do things and what to do. It made me actually access my life. Like I was, I'm in the construction industry for like the last 20 years. So I've done carpentry, cement masonry. But seeing him in the book study so hard, it's like, that ain't all I can do. So I became an inspector now. So, I pass a bunch of different state searches. But my son motivated me, man.
It's your pack, dude. It's your pack. And the pack is strong together.
Right.
So it's okay to be influenced by your kids because you see light in them. You know what I'm saying? I think it's great to be influenced by your family.
Most definitely.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's great.
So I want to go back to where you were saying that, when you found God, that's important because you said something that, you were going through some things at that moment and at that time. And you found what you were looking for. So when you were talking, I immediately thought in my head, like, you found peace.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's what you were looking for. You was overwhelmed in probably your studies. What was overwhelming you?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it was just sort of like, yeah, okay, so I'll go into it. So what I'll say, like, the word that I'd put on it is, like, resolve, you know what I mean? Like, so I feel like all throughout high school, I was always, like nervous, sort of, like, anxious, about, like test scores, and, like, I need to study my SATs, you know what I mean? I need to, all these things, community service, and, just, like, in all aspects of my life, even with my family, you know what I mean? So I think, like, what I realized was that, like, at the end of the day, like, all these worries, it's not good to worry. The Bible tells you this, right? It's like, why are you worrying if you worship me, if you worship God, is what I'm referring to, you know what I mean? And when I started to really internalize that message, it's like, no matter what happens, like, God's got my back. And he always does. He's always there in my corner. Even when I'm struggling and I think he's not, he's there.
Right.
And
the way he says it is like with so much, like it's just faith.
Yeah,
like it's you say it with like
no, absolutely.
I mean strongly. It's like there's no doubt in your mind.
There is no.
And that's great to see.
Yeah,
I love that. That's really cool when you see your kids because that kind of like that's what I mean. Like because kids are innocent. The younger you are, there's a lot of innocence in you. So when you see that faith and that strength in them, and it's coming from God, because we go through a lot as men, older men, we go through a lot. We see a lot. Things like hit us. We've been beat up through life. Mm-hmm. So, but when you see that innocence back in them, you're like, dang, it gives you a different view of everything.
I agree.
It kind of brings you back, like, hey, all right, And the Bible says, look at God like the innocence of a child, and that's what that kind of means. You know what I mean? So. Want to go into leadership. So, okay, leadership. So, now being a man of faith, you got a high IQ. I want to know, what is a leader to you? I mean, when you think of a leader, like the leader that you want to be, what kind of leader would you want to be?
Yeah, there's this analogy that I think of when I think of a leader. So I'll give you two men, right? So one person, he's ordering people to do. You need to do this, you need to do that. Think of let's say like a pharaoh, right? And he's commanding his people, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep digging, blah, 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 whatever. Now another man, he's a leader too. Let's say this is a pharaoh again. Instead of yelling at them, telling them like what to do, he's down there with them, digging with them. leading by example. That's what I think a leader is. And that's sort of like the kind of man that I try to think about being, you know what I mean? Is like, I want to be an example for people. And any time that I have any sort of like virtue, any sort of like wisdom to give to people, not like gatekeeping it, like going out of my way to share that. Because if you're someone who just like, you just keep everything to yourself, you know what I mean? It's very selfish, you know, that's not what a leader is. A leader is someone who wants to see other people build as well, and he wants to like be a pillar in doing that. And getting away from like that sort of like egotistical notion that like, I'm the man, it's all about me, you know what I mean? Another leader is Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. When Jesus came down to earth, right, he said like, he didn't come down here to be a king. And this is in Matthew, he says, he's like, I didn't come here to serve, I came here to serve you guys. Mm-hmm. That's what a leader is. Mm-hmm. That's how I would describe a leader.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
Each one teach one, right?
Yeah.
And being a father, and your son, you know, going to the level he's going to. I mean, what kind of leader were you to influence this kind of behavior with your son? Like, you had to be a special leader.
Yeah, well, I never tried to be a follower, you know, that's for sure. So we always paved, me and my twin brother, we always kind of paved our own track and always were leaders. No matter what we were doing in life, we kind of did what we wanted to do and not follow the pack, and we led. So in doing so, seeing my son, I want to teach him those same qualities, that you can't go around following people, because following people, was going to lead you to not be successful for the most part. So I always told him, you know, you're going to look different, you're mixed, you know, you're going to stand out in certain ways, but the main thing is be true to who you are and true to yourself, and don't conform to what society tries to get you to conform to, whether it be music, rap music, just all the pitfalls in life that can teach our communities bad pitfalls where one guy is benefiting and the whole world is struggling from it. I try to make sure I emphasize these things to my son to where he would understand the difference, because if I didn't teach him this, I know he would get caught up like everyone else does. They're going to get caught up in imagery and what is put out there to them. They're going to see that for what it is. So I thought it was my job to make sure to tell him how to be a leader and decipher all the distractions that come to us in this world.
I'd like to echo that too, like many times me and my dad, we'd have car rides home, and he would always just like drop that wisdom on me, and like no matter what I did in life, my dad always told me like don't be a follower, like he's always told me that, and like it's been like one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever been given, right?
Some things will stick to a child forever.
Yeah, that's definitely one.
You know, and my mom always told me, and my dad always told me when I was a kid, you know, to put business over pleasure. You know, always put business first. You know, pleasure will always come. So that impacted my life. So I understand how you feel when you says, when your father was telling you something in that car, and he would keep telling you, and then you would hear it over and over and over again. You know, and it's good that you listened and didn't take it like as, oh, that's just my dad, he don't know no better. You know, most kids, they are there, you know. I say 80% of kids, they're like, you know, they feel like their parents, you know, they're just my parents. They're old. They don't know much.
Right. We've been 20 years old, 18
right.
years old. You can learn a lot through someone older.
Right.
Save you
so
a
lot of kids don't respect their parents, and that's why they get into drugs and alcohol, and you know, it's nothing against. I mean, I can't say there's nothing against having, you know, sex, you know. Children at a young age, but it's not the best route to take it. Sure, it's not a parent's ideal for their children, so it shouldn't be. So, you know, you guys are we appreciate seeing the positive. I want to go back. I do want to go back to the beginning. You know, you went fast on where you came from. So let's just start off. You know, where'd you grow up? And what high school did you go to?
Yeah, no, so, like, the first 3 years of my life, we lived, like, with my grandma, and then, when I was, like, I think I was, like, 3 years old, we moved to Rancho Cucamonga, and we've lived there ever since. So, with that being said, like, my high school is called Altaloma High School. It's,
Altaloma.
Yeah, I went to Altaloma, and, I don't know what else to say.
Do they send a lot of kids to Ivy League schools from Altaloma? Did they have, you know?
Well, no, actually. These last. Yeah. So in my graduating class, I was the only one. But the last few years, we we've been like on the rise. So like before my year, I had a friend who went to Cornell, right? So another Ivy League. And I believe 2 students actually got into Harvard too the year before my year. But like that was like a unicorn year. Like typically, a good year for us was like if we can send 2 kids to, like UC Berkeley, UCLA. But the last 2, like my graduating class and the one before that was like it was exceptional. Like that's never happened in like in our school history. In fact, I was like the only person from my school to get into a few colleges, including the one that I attend now.
So what kind of scholarship did you get?
Yeah, so with Columbia, I got a full ride scholarship. So something that was important to me with going to college was that I didn't want my parents to have to pay like any money, you know, like especially with how expensive universities are now, it's insane. So a lot of the schools I got into, like for instance, I did interviews for USC and UC Berkeley. They gave me 4 tuition scholarships. Berkeley was a full ride, and just about. Yeah, Yale. I got into Yale. They gave me a full ride scholarship. U Chicago. I'm not trying to like brag or anything, but
No,
like
that's
you know,
do that.
This is stuff that
Yes,
needs to be said.
people need to hear
'Cause
this.
you're from out here.
You're not bragging.
And this isn't
Gotcha.
bragging. This is facts.
Right.
You know what I
Got
mean?
you, got you.
Go ahead,
How
let
many
it all
schools
out.
did you
man.
apply to, and how many did you
Yeah.
get accepted
So,
to?
yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so I applied to 14 schools. I got into 12, rejected to 1, waitlisted to 1. So my list, it was I got rejected to Stanford, which I was like, it is what it is. I got accepted to UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, Johns Hopkins, Yale,
USC.
Brown, USC, Columbia, Cornell, Northwestern. I think is that it?
And what made you
What made you choose
Columbia?
Oh yeah, no. So this is a tough choice. So I had my like choices
Who
narrowed.
did it come down to? Like,
I had my choices. I had my choices narrowed down to Columbia and Yale, and so between those, it was pretty tough. Me and my parents, we were like talking for a long time, trying to decide which one I should choose. But ultimately, with Columbia, I like the idea of being in New York City. They're really good for my major as well, and just the opportunities that I would have like with internships in New York is like everything's right there. I got to tour the school too, which is really nice, and again, like this I think was another like spiritual thing, right? So as I was touring, my tour guide, and he's still my friend now, his name is Mohammed, and after the tour, like I had told him like my dilemma, the 2 schools I was choosing from, and then he just laughs and looks at me and he's like, I had the same 2 choices. I was like, what? Then I asked him, I was like, okay, so why did you choose Columbia? So and he was also a minority student. He came from a low income background as well, and he was just like, from what I gathered from Columbia, the amount of support that they give to like low income students, it's like it's great. Like, and just all the opportunities that he was saying, like how easy it was for him to get internships, and just saying, and like the community, because like our campus is relatively small, but he's saying like it's very like tight knit because it's smaller. Like,
Family.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, and he was like, yeah, I mean, and because Columbia and Yale on paper are so close, it's like the location is almost like that factor that can set you over if they're like nearly identical on paper.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And-
good. That's good. So, what was your dreams and goals growing up? You know, and when you were a kid?
Yeah. So, okay, when I was a young kid, so now I want to be a doctor, but when I was a young kid, I wanted to be a UFC fighter. I like martial arts, you know what I mean? So I was like, I want to be a fighter, I want to.
So you was into sports?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Like, I grew up, like, I played basketball, I played football with friends, that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Then my, like, true passion in, like, all sports was martial arts. So I did, like, wrestling and jiu-jitsu.
Your dad put you in these things?
Yeah. So the thing, like, my dad, he saw that I was like interested in UFC. You know what I mean? I watched it a lot, and then he was like, "Here, you know what?" He took me to a practice at this. It was at like the YMCA, and they had like a jiu-jitsu practice, and he saw that I really liked it and that I had a passion for it, and from there, like we just took off with it. He would drive me like hours and hours away to go practice with with these good coaches, especially in wrestling. You know what I mean? My dad, because again, like I mentioned, he works long hours, and like I'm pretty sure like he would have rather rested. You know what I mean? Especially like with the work he was doing, but he would still go out of his way to take me to practices in like San Diego or wherever, Victorville. And he would send me to wrestling camp so I could like hone my skills. He'd put a lot of money in. He bought me weights so I can work out, get that strength. Like my dad, like for his kids, he's like fully invested, like by far, like wrestling mats, all these things to try to like catalyze my growth in whatever it was that I set my mind to. So
So was a lot of
Oh, go sorry. That's just your kids are like what you're pretty much like your top investment that you should have.
Most definitely.
So I mean, we've been going over that too about investing time and investing what you invest into, and God was on the top of the list too, and your kids and your wife would be another major investment. People think it's just money, but I mean your kids are a major investment.
Most
So
definitely.
and you put that investment in your kids.
Most definitely. I live for my kids. I live for my family. I'm a family man first. Whenever I see my son succeed, it was like me succeeding. We succeeded together. If he failed, I failed with him. So it made me even more harder on him. It's like, if I see you fail, I'm failing. So you're going to be out here working hard, and man, we'd be in that garage putting in work, man.
I just got tapped too.
Yeah, right.
we were going to ask you about your self-sacrificing, in this situation, but you just said it. If he failed, you were failing with him, so it was, that was your sacrifices. You had to do whatever it took to help him succeed.
That's my greatest accomplishment, was raising my son and seeing him be successful. So all my energy and time and money would go into him, seeing him succeed.
So that was your self-sacrifice.
Most definitely.
So you put a lot of time. I mean, all those hours of being exhausted and tired, you were still boom right there.
Yeah, just changing my life completely, was when I had my kids. I wasn't gonna make the same mistakes I made before, and keep going backwards and then take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, like that was done. So it really gave me purpose when I had my kids. I lost my mother 3 months before having my son, and I believe that was a sign of God replacing my number one person in my life, which was my mother, my number one supporter, with the son to replace that loss. And ever since I had him, it really got me on the straight and narrow, and I didn't have the same trials and tribulations I had before in my life.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. So it really brought purpose.
They're
to
trials and
to my
tribulations,
life.
but they're like nicer. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like it's like, oh, I want my kid to be at this level. You're striving for that instead of like thugging on the streets or some doing something.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a whole different kind of struggle
Exactly.
now. A whole
Most
different kind of
definitely. So yeah.
So what was your expectation though? Like from your, we as fathers, we have kids, and then we're seeing them growing up.
Ronnie,
What are
my expectation was high from the gate. I said it high
like
from the very
some of us
beginning.
want our kids to play sports. Some of our kids want us to.
He's like, I got a
What did you-
4.7. What
see?
kind of
What did you want from
expectations
your
you think?
expectations? Because you didn't know he was going to an Ivy League school in the beginning. As he was growing up,
I was
he
going to
was
make him.
he wanted to do UFC. So what was your expectation?
Yeah, just seeing him grow, he reminded me of myself. He caught on to things quick and early, and then I'm like, okay, you're going to be athletic. I was athletic. You'd probably be tall, But it's like I always knew the realization. It's like hitting the lottery to become a professional athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I want you to play sports and the camaraderie you learn to compete and to overcome and to mentally persevere. All of this stuff is going to shape you as a person.
Right.
So that's what I definitely wanted to install in him. But while doing so, I always told him you have to do well in school. But
So your expectation
always.
from the beginning was, school, like education was
First.
like your first expectation since he was growing up. Before he even thought about UFC, before he even thought about basketball, football, or anything, you thought about with him and his life is he has to have a great education.
Education was a priority, man.
Priority.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
first and foremost.
Yeah, I think that's great. A thing to be as a man, a howler. Like you can throw down, you can fight, you have a really high intellect, and the thing is, you love God. Like who's gonna mess with you?
That's right.
You get him in every aspect of whatever you got going on. Like who's gonna mess with you? But that mentality to have that too, to be able to do those things. The mentality, your mind is just shaped differently than most people in the world. That's a for sure thing. You know what I mean? You own a business and nobody's gonna mess with you ever. Like when you that's a whole nother level. You know what I mean? So I feel like you got a lot going for you at a young age, and it's just crazy. You know what I mean?
So you said that you wanted to be a doctor. Like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was the goal of why you're going to school.
Yeah. So right now, so I'm studying biochemistry, and so I want to do some like research right now and like RNA transposons, DNA stuff. But with that, for like my undergrad, that's what I want to do, and then
That's what you're going to do.
yeah, that's what I'm going to do, and then after that, we'll be matriculating into medical school.
Well, it seemed like you do have like business orientation as well, because in the beginning of this podcast, you talked about how you orchestrated one of the first movements at your Ivy League school, or in high school.
In my high school.
In high school, sorry. Could you tell us about that organization that you put together?
Yeah. So at my school, so I was very like interested in like science, right, and like math and mathematics. So I joined, well, I co-founded like our STEM club, and so like what this club was we'd come together like once a week, and we'd talk about like we'd use like things like MATLAB to model like different like aircrafts and that kind of stuff. And like we had this one competition. It was like a battle bot competition where like we made like this like little robot, and then we competed against another school called Etowanda High School in this competition. So that was pretty fun. And then as well as me and like my best friend in high school, we created it was a nonprofit, and it was like a health blog. So what we would do is, so during like quarantine and COVID, like we're all stuck at home, right? So we're like, how can we still like maintain fitness, right? So we would post like 15-minute workouts that people can do, and we ended up making like a website, and like it got really big in like our school community. And I remember like random like freshmen would like DM me, and they'd be like, hey, like can you give me advice on like like a good like push-up workout or something like that. And so like that was something that like took off, and I think like really helped like my college applications and that sort of stuff. And just
they need creators, more creators, so that's why it helped out a lot in your application.
Right.
Creative mind.
Innovation, exactly. And like that, and like senior year I was a president of the speech and debate club, so we would come together like Friday mornings, and we would debate like different topics, and like just gaining those like more like rhetoric skills and like that, like just and like those sort of like ways of like debating and that sort of stuff. And so I had a lot of fun with that, and I got to teach like some like the lower classmen just like better ways to formulate their argument and how to articulate that argument in a more like eloquent way. And so that was like another thing that I was like involved in with like a leadership role. And then I'm like rambling.
No,
You're not rambling. That's leadership.
That's
skills.
leadership skills. And
That's all that. Those are very important skills to have.
Right.
I mean, when you enter the world, I mean, because I'm a business owner.
Yeah.
So I mean, to me, you got to have leadership skills,
Mm-hmm.
and you're always, even as a business owner, you're still going to keep learning to be a
Right.
leader in different ways at different levels. So I mean, those are great skills to have. I wish I would have did stuff like that when I was a kid. I would have probably owned a business faster.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? It's just that we had different opportunities. You know, we grew up differently, so we had to force our opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
We had to make it happen. So it was great that you had a dad pushing you. You know, and that's those skills that you have. You obviously automatically have them because you're young and you're starting things and you're leading in things as a kid. So that's a big deal. You know.
Yeah. No. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So,
And I want to say something too, man. My son also had to overcome a speech impediment.
Yeah.
You had a speech impediment problem. He used to stutter a lot in elementary school, and now in high school he became. You were the president of the speech of your speech debate team, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like that was awesome. I mean, I've seen my son. We're stuttering. I'm looking like, man, say it, you know. But man, as he constantly, he was always just humble, and he showed always humility, and he would come out of school, you know, in his hour class with the speech therapist, right? And man, before you know it, his speech the stuttering just less and less, and then he went on to high school and became the speech debate president.
Wow.
You know, so he's always overcame things, you know, like he's never let anything like, oh, I can't do it, or be wondering about what someone thinks about him. He never let that get in the way of his success or the way he thinks of himself. And man, I'm proud of him for all that. You know, he's accomplished a lot of things. That's just we're tapping on a few, but there's a lot. There's a multitude of things that he's overcome and accomplished.
well, I feel like that develops character when you have to overcome things in life. you know, it takes away your ego a lot. You know,
Right.
what it does is it builds strength in you, and when you have to overcome things. So maybe he would have been a different kid, different kind of person, if he didn't have to overcome that. You know,
Yeah.
maybe he would have never been on debate team.
Right.
You know, so a lot of times I feel like that's good things to overcome.
It made him
agree.
work harder.
Yeah.
Right.
It made you work harder for real, right?
No, definitely.
I'm just glad it didn't make them shut down, you
Right,
know, and think,
definitely.
well, I don't want to say nothing because my peers, what they're going to think,
Right.
you know?
And some people go through that.
They
You know,
do.
they are affected by what everyone else thinks in the world or what everyone else thinks around them. You know, so he had to go through this challenge in front of people and still have the boldness to say, you know what, I'm going to get through this. You know, I'm going to still overcome this stepping stone, this bridge that, you know, to help me get to where I really want to be.
Right.
So I got a question for you, Mariano. Being a fighter, a man of God, and a Ivy League student with a high IQ, what do you look for in a woman?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. That's a good question. Yeah, so,
I wonder what that IQ is looking for.
yeah, no, I mean,
Let's see what's going on.
yeah, no. So I mean, so I have a girlfriend right now, and she's like a wonderful woman. And so I mean, like what I'd say too, and like definitely a piece of advice for like people when it comes to dating is you want to date a high value woman. And so for me, like during my spiritual journey too, when I was like really tapping into my faith, like that was when I had met my girlfriend. And so so we were like both musicians. So she was like a singer, and I would see her at school. She was like, she would sing like the national anthem, and she was in choir and whatnot. And so I had done like jazz band in school, and so like we would kind of like, we had like mutual friends, and that was how I got to meet her. But she is someone who's like very strong in her faith, and like even when we were just friends, when we were like getting to know each other, we would talk about God a lot, and I would just see it in her, like just this like burning passion for God. And she would sing it in her church's choir, and she just like, I could just see just like that light in her too, and that was like what I wanted to during that like point in my life, you know what I mean, when I was like when I was like getting further into my faith. And so that was like one of the first things that really attracted me to her, was just like how solid and how like just how strong her faith was. And so so like we began like talking, we like wrote a song together. That was pretty cool. And like I like that she was a musician, you know, like someone that had like many interests, you know what I mean, that wasn't like one dimensional. Right. She's a smart girl too. She had a high GPA, you know what I mean, and she wants to be a nurse practitioner right now, and you know, I want to be a doctor. We both kind of want to go into the medical field. And so just like to anyone like listening to, like especially for like young men, like don't get lost in like the looks of like a woman, because like you know, in junior high I'd be like, oh, you know, like this girl's pretty, you know what I mean, but come to like get to know them, you know, their like personalities or their character would be like very shallow. And I feel like especially with like relationships, like people don't realize that until they're already in them, and then they start dealing with all this stress and like, you know what I mean, like take your time, really get to know like this person who you're trying to have a relationship with, and make sure that like they align with the values that you have as a person. Because one thing I'll say is like my girlfriend, she makes me a better person, and that's important to me. If I'm going to be with a woman, like I want to help build her up, and I want her to help build me up at the same time.
That's
So I would
good.
definitely.
I'm going to encourage you a little bit right there. Always keep that energy when it comes to any woman. You know, never, and at the end of the day, some things work out, some things don't.
Right.
But never devalue or degrade a woman. You know, always
Exactly.
keep, you know, lifting them up, and always keep making sure that she is who you said she was from the beginning.
Right.
We have all that authority in us because they look at us highly as men.
Right.
You know, when we in our relationships, and we can easily degrade them and make them feel like they're less of than when we first met them.
Thank you
I'm
for
gonna
that
leave it like
advice. Thank you.
I feel like you always got to be the leader, though. Like that's the main thing. Like,
Definitely.
with a woman, because they look at it differently if you're not leading, and that's what we were talking about before. Is every man's built to lead because they have to be a leader of their home at some point. So I mean, they're all at some point. You got to realize that you have to lead.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's just it's in us.
It's a man's
Right.
nature.
So yeah, it's their nature. So
Let's talk about peer pressure.
Gotcha. Okay.
Let's talk about peer pressure growing up in high school first,
Yeah.
and how did you stay focused?
Right. Okay. So this is like a good question. This is like a great question, and I feel like peer pressure, like there are very negative effects to peer pressure, but like the way that my dad raised me, one thing that he always taught me was like the people that you surround yourself with are gonna have like a large influence on who you become, like your character and your moral in that ways. So in high school, I felt like I actually had like very good peer pressure. A lot of my close friends, we would talk about like school and like college all the time. Like my best friend is a guy named Hong. He's at UC Berkeley, and he's like interning with NASA, just doing huge things. And this is someone who we would study together. We would talk about like college all the time. We would talk about our what extracurricular activities we're doing in our clubs and all that kind of stuff. So surrounding yourself with people, like I would always think is like for me, like surround myself with people who are like smarter than me or who are better than me in a certain field, you know what I mean? And learn from that. That is like always been something that's like that I've like always thought about. And all of my friends, like the kind of people they are, even in my own faith, like my roommate, he's my best friend in college right now. He's very devout in his faith. He's very strong in it, and that like naturally rubs off onto me as well. And so that's something that I've always like considered, like the people like who my friends are, they're gonna have that influence on me. So like that positive peer pressure was like really like that really catalyzed like my growth in high school, and like the success that I found in academics, like having these people to study with. Like a lot of my friends, you know, they're also at these like elite institutions, right? And like my sort of like the methodologies that I would use to study to be more efficient and to optimize my time, I learned that from them. Becoming a better writer, you know what I mean? Like having these people to like revise my essays and this sort of thing and give me like their advice, that was like one of the biggest like influences that I would say I had on like my academic journey, like by far.
Wow.
You're influencing me right now.
Right, definitely.
Big time, dude.
Because you're making that saying come true, you know, to a certain degree, where they say, show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that you're letting us know that your pack in high school that you hung around with was a great influence. That's another part of the reason, other than your dad's influence, it's another part of the reason why you are where you are now and in this great educational school, is because you surrounded yourself around wolves that were after, you know, not just the other peer pressure the other kids were going through, like drinking, smoking, and you know, sex life at school and doing all these things at school. You know, your pack was, you know, looking strong, trying to get money
in a different way.
They're looking in the future, like, oh, we got to set up our future so we can get this bread.
Seeing the prize at the end of the road.
They seen the prize.
It's just weird because we talk about intellect a lot, and I feel like it's just a great thing that you guys are on the podcast because it brings a lot to it, and explaining this side. We haven't been able to really explain this side to people,
right?
And I really like that you guys are on here. You're explaining a lot, and even how you're talking about. I mean, one of your friends is trying to work for NASA. That's what he's training for, basically.
Yeah, no, he's like a genius. Yeah, he like this friend of mine, like he like interned with NASA as a freshman in college. He's gonna graduate from, you know, a top university in like 2 years, and like most people, you know, it's 4 years. It's 4 years to graduate. He's accelerating that process, and like I would hang out with this guy, and like just naturally he's very like physics and math orientated. So we would just be hanging out, and he would teach me some like theorem. So like all of a sudden like in my classes now in college, there's this thing in quantum mechanics called the Schrodinger's equation, and like I saw it on the board and I was like, oh yeah, here, like I know to solve this, and I was doing like partial derivatives, and then my classmates were like, dude, what the heck are you doing? Why why do you know this? And I was like, oh yeah, like junior year, one of my buddies, he like showed me like this, like, you know, this multivariable calculus theorem to like get the answer, and it's like, why, like you're not supposed to know this yet, you know what I mean?
You feel like you're a genius?
I wouldn't say that now. No.
You know what's crazy? I have no idea what you're talking about. I feel like,
I don't know, Jacob.
No, I'm not a genius. I just try my best. I'm not a genius.
Well, you seem like a genius over here on this level. I'll tell you that. It's like, dang, we're talking about some real intellectual stuff out here. It's like, dang.
I want you to understand how we feel, though, about being prideful. Prideful is not a bad thing. You look up the definition of pride. being prideful or having pride. You know, it's not just a bad thing. You know, sometimes you're motivating yourself. Sometimes you're having confidence. You know what I mean? So people looking at pride as, you know, everyone looks at pride as like, oh, I got to be humble. Humble is great, you know, because humble is who you should reflect yourself to be, you know, to others. But also, you know, sometimes you have to have a little pride in yourself. You know, that boosts your confidence. That shows, you know, that's, you know, when you need to dig deep down inside of yourself. You can't always look at what your peers are saying about you. You know, sometimes you have to have it and feel it inside of yourself.
Well, that's what this podcast is about too. So when you're here, like, okay, me and him, we've been friends a long time. So when we're talking, we're not used to talking like this to each other. We'd be like, you know what I mean? Like, what's up, dude? Like, but we had to learn that. So on this podcast,
and we're learning.
This is what the people need to hear. Like that's why it's good to show all that to let these people know what you're doing, how you're doing it. I mean, list it out. It's good for that because a lot of these people, I'll tell you right now, they probably have no idea about any of the situations that you've been living in. You know how you do things, and I think that's great for listeners to hear. Gotcha, and they're going to see a whole different side. I mean, it's like I don't even hang around people. I don't know anybody like you. Not one person.
I was asking people the last 2 days. Do you know anybody who got a full scholarship to the Ivy League, any Ivy League schools?
We're like, no,
and they're like,
school.
No.
You should talk about what it took to get there, man. Like the time that you got to put in, education-wise, man. I think that'd be great for the listeners to
Definitely.
hear.
So let us ask you that question. So how much time and effort did you have to put into to get to where you are now, you know, from high school to, you know, preparing for something like an Ivy League school?
Yeah.
AP classes.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, like, in the same way that, you know, like a D1 athlete, they're grinding nonstop, you know, as soon as they come home and, like late into the night, you know what I mean? That was how, like, education went for me as well. So, going into high school, you know, I was like, okay, I want to take like honors classes, you know, I only go on like an accelerated track because this is what I need to, you know, not only grow as a scholar, but that will like get me over the hump for like these like top institutions. So in high school, I'll like run you through like some of the classes that I took to, you know, how it works too with like the GPA is like there's a specific weight. So if you take an advanced placement class, like an AP class is meant to be a college level course. So I took 11 AP classes, and these are all like introductory level, like college classes.
11 AP classes.
Yeah, 11 AP classes, and I think like maybe 5 or 6 honors classes. And so the honors classes, they have that additional weight where it's accelerated. It's just like they aren't considered like at the college level. Like it's like right beneath that. So my freshman year, I did honors biology, and like at my school, so for math, it was integrated. So you would do a bit of trigonometry, a bit of geometry, a bit of like algebra 2, that sort of thing. So I did honors biology, honors integrated math 2, and then like the rest of my classes, like those are like, and there's like one more honors offered that I didn't take yet because you know I didn't tap into my full potential yet. I was short selling myself. But so then my sophomore year of high school, I took all honors classes and an AP class because they limited sophomores to only one AP. So at that point I did.
We just talking about sophomore.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my sophomore year, it was honors chemistry, AP world history, honors integrated math 3, and honors English. And then I took like Spanish and did like jazz band. And then by this point, over the summer, I took a math class over the summer, so I did honors pre-calculus during that summer. And then going into my junior year, I did AP calculus BC, and that's supposed to be like calculus 1 and 2 in one semester, or like in one class. AP biology, AP U.S. history, AP English language composition, a third year of Spanish and jazz band again, and then my senior year, I was able to get like a 5.0, so it was like a perfect GPA. This was all like an all AP schedule. So my senior year, or the summer before senior year, I did honors physics, and then going into senior year, I did calculus-based physics mechanics, AP level, honors anatomy and physiology. Or AP, honors level anatomy and physiology. There was an AP variant. AP English literature, AP macroeconomics, AP computer science, and AP government and politics.
Impressive.
How many hours when you come up from school? Were you
No, yeah. So throughout high school, like I lived at my desk. Like I'm not even kidding you. So like I'd get home, eat a snack, and then I'd start my homework. And then once the homework was done, like I had like additional studying to do. You know, like there's this misconception, you know, it's not just like you know, there isn't just studying, you know, like I had like about 3 hours of homework to do before I could even start like my review.
There were still cell phones and still social media at this time.
Yeah, no, for sure. So like, and like being able to like, because and I will admit, like, cause I'd be studying, I'd be on my phone a bit, but I would notice like I'd be like, man, like this is taking me too long because you know I'm like getting distracted. So there'd be times when I would just like toss my phone on my bed and just grind, you know what I mean? I'd have essays due, you know, P sets due for like my calculus class, and it was like this needs to get done, you know, no matter what. So I need to get that done. So there'd be nights where I'd be up until like 3-4 in the morning writing a paper.
Honors and AP classes.
Shit, we were at 3 or 4 in the morning partying back in high school. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, yeah. While kids are at like partying and going to dances, you know, I was like I say like in love with the game. You know what I mean? I was in my calculus textbook, you know, like doing these long derivations and all this sort of stuff. But it came to a point where it's like this is like what I liked doing. Like, you know, like I feel like if you're gonna do anything at a high level, like, you know,
you gotta love it.
Yeah, you gotta love it, because I mean, you can try to force some, like you know, like my dad, he could have just forced me, like he could have just stand in my room and then be like, do your work, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. But
how did you learn to love it?
He grew to love education.
How did you get that? How did you do that?
Dude, honestly, I just I like learning. Like there's so much to learn, and like it's gonna sound weird, but I just have a genuine fascination with like understanding, like for me, like my favorite subjects were biology and chemistry, so I'm fascinated in like metabolic pathways, how our body, it'll send like sodium pumps, like it'll pump sodium to like this like enzyme or whatever, and when that happens, then this chain reaction will take place. All that stuff and like all these like organic, you know, molecules that are involved in this is like it's just genuinely fascinating to me, and I want to like end up doing research, and I will be doing research like next year in college on this topic in genetics called RNA transposons, and that's basically how your like DNA like replicates itself. It's really interesting stuff. So for me, I was just like I don't know, and like I like during my senior year, I got like really interested in like poetry and philosophy. So like I'd read like some Plato, a little bit of Hegel, Socrates a bit, you know what I mean, Kierkegaard, you know, like these philosophers.
People like you for like
dude,
another planet.
I'm gonna tell you right now, dude. Your girlfriend held on to you after this podcast. You can't be this smart with that lineup. You can't be. You can't be this smart with that lineup.
But no, like it's just like a genuine fascination. Like I just really love to learn, like and like you know, I would tell my parents and my family just some like random fact that I learned. They'd be like, okay. But I don't know. It's just a genuine interest. Like it's like I feel like some people it's forced, but this is like I love like delving deeper into like different subjects.
How did you know? How old were you when you knew that you loved it? Like, you know, when did you notice that, you know, this is education is me, is who I am?
So I mean, like in like junior high, I like naturally like gravitated to math, you know what I mean. But I wouldn't like go. So like in my free time, you know, I was a kid, I'd play video games, you know what I mean. I wouldn't like go out of my way to like read research papers or to watch like YouTube videos that were like above the scope of what like what I was learning in class. I would say I really like hit that next gear like towards like the end of freshman year. Like,
wow.
I would like
so it's never too late.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
It's never too late. You don't have to start
send
at
my kid to your
5,
house.
6, 7, 8,
Yeah.
9, 10.
Oh no, yeah. So like by no means I was no sort of like child prodigy by any way. You know what I mean? Like and. You know, I don't even like. I mean, I know there are people like that, but I don't think that's you don't have to be like that. Like for me, like when you genuinely like have like a love for something, like you hit that overdrive. You know what I mean? And
I gotta hit the overdrive.
Yeah.
Thank you, because I'm never too old. You know what I mean? Right. I know what it is.
Yeah.
He just told me what it is.
Of the gym,
right. He just said the overdrive. That's what he said. He said you gotta hit the overdrive.
Yeah.
So you consistently do it becomes easy.
Yes.
That's what it is.
And especially when if this is what your friends like to do too, like how I was saying with my buddies, like this is what we liked. You know what I mean? We like getting like deeper into these subjects. Like I have a buddy at Cornell, and we talk on the phone until like 4 a.m. about like post-existentialism and like all these like philosophical.
Cornell University.
You don't even want to know what we're talking about the phone about.
But yeah, I don't know. Like it's just Yeah, I don't know.
That's what's up, man. It was glad to have you guys come on this podcast, man.
Appreciate
It
you
was a
guys
pleasure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you. It's cool
We're
to talk
definitely have to have you guys back too, because
Yeah.
Oh,
this
that'd
is a
be
good
cool.
one. This is
Sure.
a real good one right here.
Fathers, be in your kids' life. I can't express it any more than by saying that. Don't only be in your kids' life, actually teach these people from your mistakes, learn, give these kids guidance, man. And you raise them up, no one else will have to raise them up. They'll become what you want them to become. And just believe in your kid, believe in yourself as well.
And last thing I would like to say to you is, like, when you have that faith in God, like, no weapon, excuse me, formed against you will prosper. You know what I mean? Like, having that faith in God, no matter where you're at, like, and whatever you're trying to do, like, you're gonna be fine. And that was something that I realized too, just with any sort of stress, like, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. Like, how am I gonna stress when my Lord is like the creator of the universe? That's what I would say. Like, really establishing that faith in God.
That's good. Howls over Baz.
Howls over Bass.
Shed the sheep. We're out.